internal rhythm of my body wakes me before the alarm has a chance to sound. It is always the same. My eyes open to the darkness of the bedroom, a soft and heavy silence that feels like a blanket tucked tight around the corners of the room. I lie still for a moment, simply breathing in and out. I listen to the house settling against the wind outside. The old timber frame creaks, a gentle wooden groan that speaks of endurance and stability. I turn my head to the side and look at the clock on the nightstand. The pale green radium hands glow in the dark. It is 3:45 in the morning. I slide my legs out from under the heavy down duvet. The air in the room is crisp and cool, biting gently at my exposed skin. My feet find the floorboards. They are smooth, solid oak, chilled by the night air. I do not rush. There is no need for haste in this line of work, only a steady, deliberate momentum. I stand and stretch, feeling the vertebrae in my spine align one by one. A quiet series of pops that releases the stiffness of sleep. I walk to the bathroom in the dark, knowing the paths by heart. 5 steps to the door, a sharp left, 3 steps across the hall. I turn the brass knob and push the door open. It swings on well-oiled hinges, making no sound. I flick the switch, and the singular bulb above the mirror hums to life, casting a warm, yellow light over the white tiles. I run the tap. The water starts cold, rushing out with a hiss of pressure. I let it run until I see the steam begin to rise, swirling in the yellow light. I cup my hands under the stream, splashing the heat against my face. It wakes the skin, scrubbing away the last clinging remnants of dreams. I dry my face with a thick, rough cotton towel. The texture is abrasive in a pleasant way. It stimulates the blood flow. Routine is the anchor of this life. I reach for my shaving brush and the ceramic bowl of soap. I dampen the badger hair bristles and swirl them against the soap puck. Circular motions, round and round. I watch as the lather builds, turning from a few bubbles into a thick, rich white cream. The scent rises up to meet me. Sandalwood and clove. It is a masculine, grounding smell. I apply the lather, the brush soft against my jaw, coating the stubble. I take the safety razor from its stand. It is a heavy piece of chromed steel, balanced perfectly in the hand. I pull the skin taut and make the first pass. The blade sings against the stubble, a rasping sound like sandpaper on wood. Rinse, repeat. The result is smooth, clean skin. I wash the blade, drying it carefully to prevent rust, and place it back in its stand with a definitive click. I move to the kitchen. The house is still dark, save for the moonlight filtering through the sheer curtains. I enjoy this solitude. The world is asleep, but I am beginning my watch. Coffee is the next essential step. I do not use a machine, does the work for me. I prefer the process. I take the canister of beans from the pantry. They are a dark roast, oily and fragrant. I pour a precise measure into the manual grinder. I hold the grinder against my hip and turn the crank. The resistance is satisfying. I feel the beans shattering between the ceramic burrs, a tactile crunch that vibrates up my arm. The noise is loud in the quiet kitchen, a rhythmic gnashing that fills the space. When the resistance fades, I know the work is done. I tip the grounds into the French press. I pour the water from the kettle, which has just begun to whistle. The water hits the coffee, and the bloom expands, a crust of foam rising to the top. I stir it once with a wooden spoon, watching the grounds swirl and mix, then place the lid on top. I set the timer. 4 minutes. Not a second less, not a second more. While the coffee steeps, I dress. This is not merely putting on clothes. It is donning the necessary equipment for the environment I am about to enter. The lighthouse is exposed. It stands at the edge of the world, where the weather has no obstacle to slow it down. I need layers. First, a base layer of merino wool. It is soft against the skin and regulates heat perfectly. Next, a pair of thick canvas trousers. They are stiff, double-stitched at the knees, the color of wet sand. I thread a leather belt through the loops and buckle it tight. A flannel shirt comes next, a heavy weave in a dark tartan pattern. I button it from the bottom up, my fingers working the buttons through the stiff fabric holes. I sit on the wooden bench in the hallway to put on my boots. They are heavy leather, scuffed and treated with beeswax to repel the salt water. I slide my feet in, feeling the firm support of the sole. I lace them up. Crisscross, pull. Crisscross, pull. I wrap the laces around the hooks at the ankle and tie a double knot. I stamp my feet once, twice, ensuring the fit is snug but not constricting. The timer chimes in the kitchen. I return and press the plunger down slowly. I feel the pressure of the water fighting back, forcing the grounds to the bottom of the glass beaker. I pour the black liquid into a thermos. It steams aggressively. I seal the thermos, screwing the cap on until it locks tight. I place it in my canvas satchel alongside a wrapped sandwich and an apple. I put on my outer shell, a heavy wool sweater, thick and cable knit, smelling faintly of the sea even after washing. Finally, the oilskin jacket. It is long, reaching down to my thighs, waxed and waterproof. I lift it from the hook. It has a weight to it, a substantial heft that promises protection. I slide my arms into the sleeves and zip it up. The zipper is large and brass. It engages with a solid, metallic teeth-clenching sound. I pull the collar up. I am ready. I pick up my keys from the bowl by the door. There is a specific key for the lighthouse, distinct from the others. It is an old skeleton key, long and made of iron, its teeth intricate and worn smooth by decades of use. I feel its cold metal shape in my pocket as I step out the front door. The air outside is different. It is alive. It carries the heavy, saline scent of the ocean and the damp earthiness of the pre-dawn mist. It is cold, a damp chill that tries to find a way through the wool, but my layers hold. I lock the house door behind me and walk down the gravel path to the truck. The gravel crunches loudly under my heavy boots. Each step is a crisp, fracturing sound. The truck is an old Defender, boxy and utilitarian. It is covered in a fine layer of dew. I pull the door handle, and the mechanism unlatches with a clunk. I climb into the driver's seat, the vinyl cold against my trousers. I insert the key into the ignition and turn it. The diesel engine coughs once, then roars to life with a deep, rattling idle. The whole vehicle vibrates gently. I let it idle for a minute, allowing the oil to circulate and warm, watching the needles on the dashboard lift from their resting pins. I switch on the headlights. Two beams of yellow light cut through the darkness, illuminating the swirling mist and the hedgerows that line the driveway. I shift into gear, the stick moving with a mechanical notch, and ease the clutch out. The tires roll over the gravel, and I pull out onto the main road. The drive is a transition. It is the bridge between the domestic comfort of the house and the solitary duty of the tower. The town is asleep. I pass rows of silent houses, their windows dark and reflective. Streetlights pass overhead in a rhythmic cadence. Flash, darkness, flash, darkness. I drive slowly, the tires humming on the damp asphalt. There is no other traffic. I am the only soul moving through this gray, sleeping world. As I leave the town behind, the road narrows and begins to wind. The hedgerows disappear, replaced by low stone walls and scrubby gorse bushes. The terrain becomes wilder. The mist is thicker here, rolling off the ocean in great, silent waves. I switch on the fog lights. They cast a wide, low beam that highlights the texture of the road surface. I can feel the change in the atmosphere. The wind buffets the side of the truck, gentle shoves that remind me of the power waiting at the coast. I reach the causeway. It is a narrow strip of land connecting the mainland to the rocky headland where the lighthouse stands. At high tide, the water laps at the edges of the road, but now the tide is out. I can see the dark shapes of rocks revealed by the receding water, glistening with seaweed. I drive across, the sound of the tires changing as the surface shifts from smooth tarmac to a rougher, salt-pitted concrete. Ahead, the lighthouse stands. Even in the dark, its presence is massive. It is a pillar of white stone rising from the black rock, a vertical line of order against the chaos of the cliffs. The light at the top is sweeping. I watch the beam cut through the fog. It rotates with hypnotic regularity. Flash, a pause of darkness. Flash, a pause of darkness. It is a heartbeat made of light. I pull the truck into the small parking bay at the base of the headland. I turn the key and the engine dies. The silence that rushes in to fill the cab is sudden and profound. But as I sit there, the silence resolves into sound. The deep, rhythmic booming of the waves crashing against the cliffs below. The high-pitched whistling of the wind tearing around the corners of the truck. I grab my satchel and the thermos. I open the door and step out. The wind hits me instantly, stronger here than back at the house. It tugs at my oilskin coat, snapping the fabric. I taste the salt on my lips immediately. It is fresh and bracing. I close the truck door with a slam that is swallowed instantly by the wind. I walk up the path toward the tower. It is a steep ascent, paved with cobblestones that have been polished smooth by a century of keepers walking this same route. I keep my head down, chin tucked into my collar, leaning into the incline. My boots find purchase on the wet stones. I can feel the muscles in my calves working, the steady burn of effort. I reach the base of the tower. Up close, the lighthouse is overwhelming. It blocks out the sky. I place a hand on the white painted stone. It is cold and damp, skin-like texture from the layers of paint applied over the years. I can feel the vibration of the machinery inside, a faint, deep thrumming that resonates through the structure. I walk around to the heavy iron door. It is painted a deep, glossy red. I take the iron skeleton key from my pocket. It feels substantial in my hand. I slide it into the keyhole. Metal slides against metal. I turn it. The mechanism inside is heavy and requires force. I feel the tumblers lifting, heavy blocks of brass moving into place. There is a loud, satisfying clack as the bolt withdraws. I push the door open. It is heavy, requiring a shoulder to get it moving, but it swings inward smoothly. I step across the threshold and close the door behind me, leaning back against it to ensure the latch engages. The silence inside is immediate. The roar of the wind and the sea is cut off as if by a switch. In here, the air is still and smells of history. It is a unique bouquet. The sharp tang of brass polish, the sweet chemical smell of lubricating oil, the faint dust of old stone, and the underlying scent of the sea that permeates everything. I am in the entrance hall. The floor is black and white checkered tile, spotless and gleaming. To my left is the logbook desk. To my right, the beginning of the stairs. I reach out and flip the switch on the wall. A series of caged bulkhead lights flicker on, illuminating the spiral staircase that winds upward, disappearing into the shadows above. I walk to the desk first. I set down my satchel and thermos. I open the logbook. The paper is thick and cream-colored. I pick up the fountain pen tethered to the desk. I check the nib. It is clean. I unscrew the cap and write the date and time in the first column. My handwriting is neat, practiced block letters. 0430. Keeper arrived. All secure. The scratch of the pen on the paper is loud in the quiet hall. I take a moment to breathe in the atmosphere of the tower. This is my domain. There is a profound sense of peace here. The world outside is chaotic, driven by tides and storms. But inside, everything is ordered, calibrated, and maintained. I hang my oilskin coat on the brass coat rack. I leave my heavy sweater on. The tower is cool, acting as a chimney that draws the cold air up. I pick up my satchel. It is time to climb. I approach the stairs. They are cast iron, painted a glossy gray, with a non-slip diamond pattern on each tread. The handrail is polished brass, cold and smooth under my palm. I begin the ascent. There are 112 steps to the lantern room. I do not rush. I fall into a rhythm. Step, step, step. My hand slides up the rail, a continuous point of contact. The sound of my boots on the metal steps echoes softly, a metallic ringing that rises up the shaft. Clang, clang, clang. As I climb, I pass the small windows set into the thick walls. The glass is thick, distorted by the curvature. Through them, I see only darkness and the occasional white flash of foam on the rocks below. I am ascending through the darkness, moving toward the light. At step 40, I pass the storage level. I glance in through the open archway. Shelves of spare bulbs, cans of paint, rolls of brass wire, tools arranged in perfect size order on shadow boards. Everything is in its place. I nod, satisfied, and continue climbing. At step 80, the air grows slightly warmer. I can hear the rotation of the optic above me now. It is a rhythmic whir-click, whir-click, the heartbeat of the tower. The sound is comforting. It means the mechanism is running true. I reach the final landing. A narrow, steep metal ladder leads up through a trapdoor into the service room, which sits just below the lantern itself. I grip the side rails of the ladder and pull myself up. I emerge into the service room. This room is the brain of the lighthouse. It is filled with the smell of warm oil and electricity. In the center is the great clockwork pedestal that supports the lens above. It is a masterpiece of engineering, a mass of green painted iron and brass gears. Even though it is now driven by an electric motor, the original reduction gears are still there, turning slowly, glistening with fresh oil. I set my satchel down on the workbench. I walk over to the control panel. It is a wall of dials and switches. The needles on the gauges are steady. Voltage is optimal. Amperage is consistent. Rotation speed is locked at exactly 2 revolutions per minute. I tap the glass face of the voltage gauge with my fingernail. Tink, tink. The needle does not waver. I climb the final few steps into the lantern room itself. This is the jewel in the crown. I am surrounded by glass. The storm panes of the tower surround me, and in the center, dominating the space, is the Fresnel lens. It is a massive structure, taller than I am, shaped like a giant beehive made of glass prisms set in brass frames. It is mesmerizing. The light bulb inside is blindingly bright, but the lens captures that light, bending it, focusing it into a single, piercing beam that reaches out for 20 miles across the ocean. I stand with my back to the dark land, facing the glass. The lens rotates silently on its mercury float bath. It glides past me, a wall of glass and brass. I feel the heat radiating from it as the beam swings by. I watch the beam strike the glass of the lantern room, turning the moisture on the outside into sparkling diamonds for a split second before punching through into the night. I check the curtains. During the day, they must be drawn to prevent the sun from entering the lens and focusing heat that could start a fire. But now they are bundled neatly to the sides, secured with heavy canvas straps. I take a clean microfiber cloth from my pocket. I walk around the gallery walkway that encircles the lens. I look for any smudges, any dust motes on the prisms. I spot a small fingerprint on one of the lower brass fittings. I wipe it away with a firm, circular motion until the brass gleams like gold. I lean against the railing, looking out into the void. The anticipation of the day settles over me. There is no urgency here. The light is turning. The gears are meshing. The structure is holding. I am alone, suspended between the dark ocean and the starless sky, wrapped in the warm, rhythmic hum of the machine. The workday has begun, not with a clamor, but with a quiet, steady resolve. I take a deep breath, filling my lungs with the unique air of the lantern room, ozone, heat, and purpose. I am the keeper, and the light is burning. All is well. I stand at the base of the spiral staircase, my hand resting on the cool, painted iron of the railing. The tower above me is silent, save for the low, resonant hum of the wind pressing against the thick granite walls. This is the moment of transition. The morning coffee has done its work, warming my chest and sharpening my focus. Now, the domestic comfort of the keeper's cottage is left behind. The tower demands my full attention. I begin the ascent. There are 114 steps to the lantern room. I do not rush. My boots, heavy and laced tight against my ankles, make a dull, rhythmic thud against the metal treads. 1, 2, 3. rhythm is slow and deliberate, a walking meditation that clears the mind of any lingering dreams. With each rotation of the spiral, the air grows slightly cooler, smelling less of the wood stove downstairs and more of the iron and salt that define my existence. At the top, I reach the service room, the chamber directly beneath the great glass lantern. This is the heart of the machine, the workshop where the tools of my trade await. I hang my heavy wool coat on the hook near the door. The room is immaculate. Everything has a place, and everything is in its place. The floor is covered in checkered linoleum, polished to a shine so deep it looks wet. Along the walls, wooden cabinets with glass fronts display the spare parts, the bulbs, the fuses, and the cleaning supplies, all arranged with the precision of a laboratory. My first task is the lens. It is the crown jewel of the Lighthouse, a first-order Fresnel lens, a massive beehive of glass and brass standing 12 feet tall. I climb the short brass ladder into the lantern room proper. The sun is up now, and although I have drawn the heavy linen curtains to protect the lens from magnifying the sunlight and starting a fire, the room is filled with a soft, diffused amber glow. I approach the lens with reverence. It is a masterpiece of engineering, hundreds of glass prisms arranged in concentric circles, designed to capture every stray photon and bend it into a single piercing beam. But dust is the enemy of light. Even up here, sealed against the elements, the air carries microscopic particles that settle on the glass. I open the small wooden box I carry with me. Inside, nestling in velvet, are my cleaning cloths. These are not ordinary rags. They are pure linen, washed 100 times until they are soft as silk, free of any lint or abrasive fibers. I select one and fold it into a precise square. From a darkened glass bottle, I pour a small measure of spirits and distilled water onto the cloth. The smell is sharp and clean, cutting through the scent of oil. I begin with the central bullseye, the thickest part of the glass. I do not scrub. I glide. My hand moves in small, circular motions, starting from the center and spiraling outward. I can feel the texture of the glass through the cloth, smooth and cold. I watch the surface closely. As the spirit mixture evaporates, it leaves the glass invisible. If I see a streak, I go back. The glass must not just be clean, it must be absent. It must offer no resistance to the light. I work my way out to the catadioptric prisms, the angled rings of glass above and below the central belt. These are trickier. They have sharp edges and deep grooves where dust likes to hide. I use a soft badger hair brush, the kind used for shaving or painting fine art, to gently sweep the crevices before applying the cloth. The brush bristles whisper against the glass. Swish, swish, swish. It is a satisfying sound, dry and delicate. I lose track of time. There is only the glass, the cloth, and the motion of my arm. This is the flow. My breathing synchronizes with the work. Inhale as I lift the cloth. Exhale as I apply pressure. I move around the lens, circling the massive structure. It takes 40 minutes to clean the exterior of the lens. When I am finished, I step back. Even in the dim light of the curtained room, the lens gleams like a diamond, heavy and latent with power. Next comes the mechanism. The lens does not stand still, it floats. It rests in a circular trough filled with mercury, a liquid metal that allows the multi-ton structure to rotate with the push of a single finger. I kneel at the base of the pedestal. Here the smell changes. It is the scent of machine oil and heavy grease, an industrial perfume that I have come to love. I check the levels. The mercury must be perfectly balanced. I lean in, inspecting the float. It is steady. I take a heavy brass oil can from the shelf. It has a long, slender spout, curved like the neck of a heron. I press the thumb lever. A single, golden drop of oil forms at the tip. I guide it to the lubrication point on the rotation gears. The drop falls. I wait for it to settle, watching it coat the metal teeth. I apply another, then another. I do not flood the gears. I anoint them. I engage the test motor. A low, electric hum fills the room, vibrating through the soles of my boots. The great lens begins to turn. I watch the rotation, counting the seconds in my head. 1001, 1002. It completes a revolution in exactly 20 seconds. Perfect. The movement is silent. There is no grinding, no clicking, no hesitation. Just the smooth, inexorable slide of massive weight moving on a frictionless bed. I place my hand on the iron pedestal, feeling the vibration. It feels like a living thing, a steady pulse of engineering. With the mechanics satisfied, I turn to the brass. A lighthouse is a cathedral of brass. The railings, the window frames, the instrument housings, the doorknobs. In the salt air, brass tarnishes quickly, turning a dull, mottled brown. I cannot allow that. I take a tin of polish from my kit. It is a thick, pink paste that smells of ammonia and clay. I scoop a small amount onto a coarser rag, a piece of heavy cotton. I start with the handrail that encircles the lens. I apply the paste, rubbing it into the metal until the brass is obscured by a haze of pink. I work in sections, 2 feet at a time. Apply, rub, wait, then the reveal. I take a clean, dry flannel cloth. I grip the rail firmly. I buff the metal, using long, rapid strokes. The friction generates heat. I can feel the metal warming under my hand. As I rub, the pink haze vanishes, revealing the gold underneath. It is not just shiny, it has depth. It reflects the room, distorted and golden. The satisfaction is immediate. I am erasing entropy. I am imposing order on the chaos of the elements. I move along the rail, leaving a trail of mirrored gold behind me. The repetitive motion is hypnotic. My shoulders burn slightly, a pleasant, low-level ache that tells me I am working. Once the interior is secure, I must face the exterior. I unlock the heavy iron door that leads to the gallery, the outdoor walkway that rings the top of the tower. The wind hits me immediately, stripping away the warm, still air of the lantern room. It is fresh and cold, carrying the moisture of the sea. The view is endless, a horizon of gray water meeting gray sky. But I am not here for the view. I am here for the lantern panes. The lantern room is protected by triangular panes of thick storm glass. Overnight, the wind has plastered them with a fine mist of salt spray. If left alone, the salt will crust over, dimming the light and etching the glass. I carry a galvanized steel bucket filled with fresh, warm water and a splash of vinegar. In my other hand, I hold a long-handled squeegee with a natural rubber blade. I dip a large sponge into the bucket, squeezing it out until it is damp but not dripping. The water is warm on my hands, a stark contrast to the biting wind. I start on the north side, facing the wind. I sponge the glass. The salt dissolves instantly. I work from top to bottom, wetting the pane thoroughly. Then the squeegee. I place the rubber blade at the top corner of the pane. I pull it down in a single, smooth stroke. The water cascades down the glass, chased by the rubber blade. A stripe of perfect clarity appears. I wipe the blade on a rag tucked into my belt. I place it again, overlapping the dry stripe by an inch. Pull down, wipe, place, pull down. The sound is a sharp, distinct zip against the glass. It is a sound of finality. With each stroke, the view becomes sharper, as if I am peeling away a layer of gauze. I work my way around the gallery, dancing a slow circle around the tower. My boots grip the metal grating of the walkway. The wind tugs at my sweater, but I am anchored by the task. I check the caulking around the frames as I go, looking for cracks where water might intrude. The putty is solid, painted a glossy red that stands out against the white tower and the blue-gray sea. When the outer glass is finished, I pour the remaining water into the scuppers, watching it drain away to the rocks far below. I take a moment to lean against the railing, looking out at the expanse. The ocean is breathing, long swells rolling in from the deep, breaking in slow motion against the reef. I feel a profound sense of solitude, but not loneliness. I am a part of this system. The ocean, the tower, the light, and the keeper. We are all gears in the same clock. I step back inside, locking the storm door with a heavy, satisfying clack of the bolt. The silence of the interior rushes back to meet me. The contrast makes the quiet feel heavy, like a blanket. My final task for the morning flow is the logbook. I descend the short ladder to the service room and sit at the small mahogany desk built into the curve of the wall. The desk is scarred from decades of use, the varnish worn away where elbows have rested for a century. I open the logbook. It is a large, ledger-style volume with a hard canvas cover. The pages are thick, cream-colored paper, ruled with pale blue lines. I unscrew the cap of my fountain pen. It is black resin with a gold nib. I check the ink level. It is full. I look at the instruments mounted on the wall above the desk. First, the barometer. I tap the glass face gently with my fingernail to ensure the needle is free. It reads 29.9 inches of mercury and rising. I note the temperature from the thermometer, 52 degrees. I look at the anemometer dial, watching the needle dance. Wind speed, 15 knots nor-northwest. I bring the pen to the paper. The nib touches the page with a microscopic scratch. I write in the date first. The ink flows smoothly, drying instantly to a deep, permanent black. My handwriting is practiced, a mix of cursive and block print designed for legibility. 0800 hours. Wind north-northwest, 15 knots. Sea state, moderate swell. Visibility, 10 miles plus. Barometer, 29.9, rising. Task log, lens cleaned. Mechanism oiled and tested. Gallery glass washed. Brass polished. Remarks, all systems nominal. I underline the entry with a small wooden ruler, drawing a crisp, straight line across the page. This line marks the end of the morning shift. The work is contained. The data is preserved. I cap the pen and set it down in the groove of the desk. I sit back in the wooden chair, exhaling a long breath. My hands smell of brass polish and vinegar. My fingertips feel sensitive, awakened by the textures of glass and metal. The tower around me feels ready. It is prepped, polished, and primed for the night to come, even though the sun is still climbing the sky. The flow state begins to ebb, replaced by the pleasant fatigue of a job well done. I stand up, pushing the chair back. I run a hand over the smooth, cool surface of the cabinets one last time. Everything is right. The order has been maintained. I pick up my empty bucket and the bundle of soiled cloths. I cast one last look up the ladder at the lantern room. The amber light glows softly behind the curtains. The machine is sleeping, but it is a light sleep, ready to wake at the touch of a switch. I begin the descent. 114 steps down. The rhythm is different now. It is lighter, faster. The heavy thud of the ascent is replaced by a quicker cadence. I am descending back into the world of the cottage, of lunch, of reading, of naps. But the satisfaction of the morning flow remains with me, a steady ballast in the center of my chest. I have served the light, and the light is ready. The heavy iron door of the lantern room clicks shut behind me, sealing away the smell of oil and the brilliance of the glass. The morning maintenance is complete. The Fresnel lens is polished to a diamond clarity. The rotation gears are greased, and the brass fittings gleam with a warmth that rivals the sun. Now the day shifts. The high focus of the morning gives way to the slower, softer rhythm of the afternoon. I stand at the top of the spiral staircase, my hand resting on the cool, painted metal of the railing. I take a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the tower itself. It smells of old stone, salt dampness, and the faint, metallic tang of the stairs. I begin the descent. My boots make a dull, rhythmic thud against the iron steps. 112 steps down to the living quarters. I do not rush. Each step is a transition, a shedding of the technical responsibilities of the light for the domestic comforts of the keeper. Around and around the central column, I go. The windows set into the thick masonry walls pass by in a blur of gray and blue. The light changes as I descend, growing less intense, more filtered. By the time I reach the landing of the galley, the bright white glare of the upper tower has mellowed into the cozy, amber hue of the living space. I enter the kitchen. It is a curved room, hugging the interior wall of the lighthouse, fitted with cabinets that follow the arc of the stone. It is silent here, save for the ticking of the brass clock on the wall and the distant, muffled roar of the sea outside. This is a silence I have built, a sanctuary of order. I walk to the sink to wash my hands. The water from the tap is cold, drawn from the cistern deep below. I use a bar of rough, pumice soap, working it into a lather to scrub away the remnants of polishing compound and machine grease. The friction is grounding. I rinse, watching the gray water swirl down the drain, leaving my hands pink, clean, and warm. I dry them on a thick cotton towel, enjoying the roughness of the fabric against my skin. It is time for lunch. This is not merely a refueling. It is a ritual of texture and temperature. I move to the cast iron stove. It radiates a gentle, constant heat, keeping the dampness of the ocean at bay. I open the heavy door of the firebox with a metal hook. The embers inside glow a deep, pulsing red. I add 2 small logs of dried birch. The wood crackles as it catches, a sharp, comforting sound that promises warmth. I take the heavy copper kettle from the hook and fill it, placing it on the hot plate of the stove. The metal pings as the heat begins to transfer. While the water heats, I prepare the meal. Today it is simple. A thick vegetable stew prepared yesterday. The flavors allowed to meld and deepen overnight, and fresh bread. I go to the pantry, a cool, dark cupboard lined with cedar shelves. The smell of dried herbs and yeast greets me. I select a round loaf of sourdough, its crust dark and dusted with flour. I carry it to the wooden butcher block in the center of the room. The wood of the block is scarred and smooth, worn soft by decades of use. I take the bread knife from the magnetic strip on the wall. The handle is riveted wood, the blade long and serrated. I position the loaf. I draw the knife back. The sound of the serrated edge biting into the crisp crust is a distinct crunch. I saw back and forth, the knife moving with a steady cadence. Sa pull, sa pull. The crust yields to the soft, airy interior. I cut 2 thick slices, the crumbs scattering across the wood like sawdust. I place a heavy iron skillet on the stove. I take a pat of butter, pale yellow and cold, and drop it into the pan. It sizzles immediately, melting into a golden pool that smells of cream and salt. I lay the bread into the butter. The sound is an aggressive hiss that quickly softens to a steady sear. I watch as the bread absorbs the butter, the edges turning a rich, toasted brown. While the bread toasts, I ladle the cold stew into a small saucepan. The stew is thick, a mosaic of root vegetables, carrots, potatoes, parsnips, suspended in a dark, savory broth. I set the saucepan on the stove next to the kettle. I stir it slowly with a wooden spoon. The spoon scrapes against the bottom of the pot, a dull, hollow sound. I watch the surface of the stew. Slowly, small bubbles begin to break the surface, releasing wisps of steam that smell of thyme and roasted onions. The kettle begins to sing. It starts as a low hum, vibrating the copper before rising to a steady whistle. I lift it from the heat, the whistle dying instantly. I pour the boiling water into a ceramic teapot, swirling it around to warm the pot before dumping it out. Then I add loose leaf black tea, the dried leaves rustling as they hit the bottom. I pour the fresh water over them. The steam rises in a cloud, carrying the scent of malt and earth. I place the lid on the pot and cover it with a knitted cozy to steep. The bread is ready. I flip the slices onto a plate. They are rigid and golden, hot to the touch. I pour the steaming stew into a deep bowl. I carry the meal to the small table set against the window. I sit. The chair creaks slightly, a familiar greeting. I do not eat immediately. I take a moment to simply exist in this space. The tower is solid around me. The air is warm and smells of toast and tea. Outside the thick glass of the window, the world is in motion. I look out at the horizon. The afternoon light is different than the mornings. It is flatter, heavier. The ocean is a slate gray, churning with whitecaps that appear and disappear in a mesmerizing, chaotic pattern. I am safe behind the glass. I am separate from the wind, yet intimate with it. I pick up the spoon. It is heavy silver, tarnished slightly in the grooves of the handle. I dip it into the stew. The liquid is hot, coating the back of my throat with savory warmth. The vegetables are soft, offering no resistance. I eat slowly. There is no rush. There is no phone to answer, no knock at the door. There is only the bowl, the spoon, and the sea. I pick up a slice of the toasted bread. It is rough against my fingertips. I bite into it. The crunch is loud in the quiet room. The butter has soaked deep into the crumb, rich and salty. I chew methodically, matching the rhythm of my jaw to the rhythmic swelling of the waves below. I pour the tea. The stream of dark amber liquid spirals into the mug. I add a splash of milk, watching it billow and cloud before turning the tea a soft beige. I wrap my hands around the mug. The ceramic transfers the heat to my palms, thawing the lingering chill from the spiral stairs. I sip. The tea is strong, tannic, and grounding. I finish the meal in silence. I wipe the bowl clean with the last crust of bread. I feel a heavy, pleasant fullness settle in my stomach. This is the lull, the time of day when the sun is past its zenith, beginning its long, slow slide toward the west. But the evening work has not yet begun. The biological clock slows down. The eyelids grow heavy. I stand and clear the table. I wash the bowl, the spoon, and the pot in the sink, drying them immediately and returning them to their places. A place for everything, and everything in its place. The kitchen must be reset to 0. I do not nap. Napping leaves a fog that is hard to shake when the light must be lit. Instead, I move to the desk in the corner of the room. It is a roll-top desk made of oak that has darkened to the color of molasses over the years. I roll the top back. The slats slide smoothly in their tracks, revealing a tidy workspace of pigeonholes and drawers. It is time for the logbook. I open the large, leather-bound ledger. The spine cracks softly. The paper is thick, cream-colored vellum, ruled with precise blue lines. I run my hand over the page, feeling the texture of the paper and the slight indentation of yesterday's entries. I pick up my fountain pen. I unscrew the cap, revealing the gold nib. I check the ink level in the reservoir. It is half full. I dip the nib into the bottle of blue-black ink kept in the corner well, pulling the small lever to draw the ink up. I wipe the nib with a lint-free cloth. I begin to write. The date, the time, 1400 hours. My handwriting is practiced, a blend of cursive and block print designed for absolute legibility. The pen scratches audibly against the paper. The sound is crisp, like dry leaves skittering on pavement. Wind north-northwest, 20 knots. Sea state, moderate chop. Swell 3 feet. Visibility 10 miles. Clear. Barometer 29.9 inches. Rising. Temperature 52 degrees. I record the maintenance performed in the morning. Lens polished. Rotation mechanism lubricated. Mercury bath checked and leveled. Writing these things down makes them real. It creates a history. I am not just a person in a tower. I am a link in a chain of keepers stretching back 100 years. I turn the page back to see the entry from this day 10 years ago. The handwriting is different, sharper, more angular, but the data is the same. Wind, sea, light. The continuity is soothing. I close the logbook. The heavy cover falls with a dull thud. For the next hour, I turn to organizational tasks. This is low energy work, perfect for the digestion period. I move to the tool chest kept near the entrance. It is a wooden box with brass corners. I open the drawers. I scan the wrenches. They are arranged by size, from smallest to largest. I notice one wrench, the 5/8 inch, is slightly out of alignment. I nudge it back into parallel with its brothers. I pick up a rag and a tin of light machine oil. I take out the screwdrivers one by one. I wipe the handles, removing invisible traces of sweat and oil. I wipe the shafts. I inspect the tips for any burrs or damage. They are pristine. I place them back, the handles creating a perfect line of color. I move to the drawer, holding the spare bulbs. They are packed in foam, delicate glass giants. I count them: 4 main bulbs, 6 auxiliary bulbs. I check the filaments, holding each bulb up to the light of the window. The tungsten coils are intact, waiting for their turn to burn. I note the count on a small inventory card tacked to the inside of the drawer. There is a meditative quality to this sorting. It requires just enough attention to keep the mind from wandering, but not enough to tax the brain. It is tactile. The cold steel of the tools, the smell of the oil, the soft slide of the drawers. I find a small box of brass screws that has been jumbled. I carry it to the desk. I dump the screws onto a piece of felt. I separate them by length and head type. Flathead here, Phillips there. 1 inch, 1/2 inch. I pick them up with tweezers, placing them into the compartments of a plastic organizer. Click, drop. Click, drop. The repetition is hypnotic. Once the screws are sorted, I close the organizer and latch it. I return it to the shelf. The sense of order in the room increases incrementally. The chaos of the universe is held back by these small acts of alignment. I walk back to the window. The light has shifted again. The sun is lower now, casting longer shadows across the water. The whitecaps are catching the light, turning from white to gold. I pick up the brass barometer from the wall. It is heavy, a dense disc of glass and metal. The brass is slightly dull from the salt air. I take a tin of polish and a soft cloth. I apply a small dab of the paste. It smells sharp, chemical, and clean like ammonia. I rub the paste into the metal in small, circular motions. The cloth turns black with oxidation. I rub and rub, feeling the heat generated by the friction. I wipe away the residue with a clean section of the cloth. The brass underneath is revealed, bright and mirror-like. I can see the reflection of my own eye in the casing, distorted and golden. I polish the glass face until it is invisible. I hang the barometer back on its hook. It gleams against the white painted brick, a jewel of functionality. I check my watch. It is 15:30. The deep lull of the afternoon is passing. The energy is shifting again. The sun is beginning its serious descent. The light in the room is turning from the bright white of midday to a softer, longer gold. I feel rested. The meal has been digested. The tools are in order. The log is updated. The lethargy of the lunch hour has been replaced by a quiet readiness. The evening routine is approaching. I sit in the armchair for a moment longer. I close my eyes. I listen to the tower. The wind is picking up slightly. A low whistle around the lantern room far above. The waves are striking the rocks with a little more force. A bass drum beat that vibrates up through the granite foundation and into the soles of my feet. I am not asleep, but I am in a state of profound rest. My breathing is slow and even. My hands are still, resting on the arms of the chair. I am a static point in a moving world. I open my eyes. The dust motes are dancing in a shaft of sunlight that cuts across the room, illuminating the worn patterns of the rug. I watch them swirl, suspended in the air, moved by currents I cannot feel. I stand up. My joints pop softly. I stretch, reaching my arms up toward the curved ceiling. I feel the muscles in my back lengthen. I lower my arms and roll my shoulders. It is time to prepare for the evening. The transition from the domestic to the operational begins again. I look at the stove. The fire has burned down to coals. I add one more log to keep the chill away during the long night ahead. I walk to the sink and drink a glass of water. It is crisp and revitalizing. I wipe my mouth. I look at the spiral staircase. The shadows are gathering in the curve of the stairwell. The lull is over. The work waits. But for now, in this quiet interlude, everything is correct. Everything is accounted for. The lighthouse breathes, and I breathe with it. I am ready for the dusk. The sun has begun its slow, deliberate descent toward the horizon line, marking the transition from maintenance to operation. The quality of the light inside the lantern room changes, shifting from the harsh, revealing brightness of midday to a softer, amber glow that catches the dust motes dancing in the air. My work on the rotation mechanism is complete. The gears are lubricated, the brass is polished to a mirror shine, and the floor is swept clean of even the smallest grain of grit. Now I turn my attention to the final task of the active shift, the engagement of the optic. I stand before the control panel, a heavy industrial cabinet painted a deep, glossy gray. It is a masterpiece of analog reliability. There are no touchscreens here, only robust switches and analog dials that respond with satisfying tactile feedback. I check the voltage meter first. The needle rests perfectly within the green zone, steady and unmoving. The backup batteries are fully charged, a silent reserve of power waiting in the basement. But the main line is holding strong. I reach out and flip the master switch for the rotation motor. There is a click, distinct and metallic, followed immediately by a low, rising hum. It is a sound I feel in the soles of my boots as much as I hear it. The great glass hive of the Fresnel lens, weighing several tons, begins to move. It does not lurch. It glides, floating on its bed of mercury. The friction is almost non-existent. I watch the rotation speed indicator. The needle climbs slowly. 1, 2, 3. It settles at exactly 3.5 revolutions per minute. I step back to watch the lens itself. The concentric rings of glass, cut with mathematical precision to capture and bend the light, begin their endless circle. The movement is hypnotic. The heavy brass frame that holds the prisms catches the fading sunlight, flashing gold, then shadow, then gold again. Next, the lamp. I verify the primary bulb is seated correctly. It is a small thing compared to the massive glass structure surrounding it. Yet, it is the heart of the tower. I toggle the lamp switch. There is no flicker, just an instant, brilliant ignition. The light explodes outward, captured immediately by the prisms, and focused into a singular, piercing beam. Even in the twilight, the intensity is formidable. I do not look directly at the source. Instead, I look at the wall opposite the lens. I see the focused bar of light sweep across the white painted interior, a rhythmic pulse that will define the next 12 hours. Flash, darkness, flash, darkness. The timing is perfect. The rhythm is the heartbeat of the coast. With the light active and the rotation stable, I move to the log desk. It is a small, slanted surface made of oak, bolted to the iron wall of the lantern room. The logbook lies open, its spine cracked from years of use. I pick up the heavy fountain pen I keep specifically for this purpose. I unscrew the cap, placing it precisely at the top of the page. I look at the chronometer on the wall. The time is 1700 hours and 45 minutes. I touch the nib to the paper. The ink flows smoothly, dark blue against the cream-colored page. I write the date first, forming each number with deliberate care. Then the time of lighting. Next, the weather conditions. Wind nor-northeast, 15 knots. Visibility, 10 nautical miles clear. Barometric pressure, 1,012 millibars, rising. Status, all systems nominal. Rotation smooth. Primary lamp engaged. I sign my initials at the bottom of the entry. The scratch of the pen on the paper is the only sound competing with the rhythmic hum of the motor and the muffled crash of the sea far below. I blow gently on the ink to ensure it is dry, then close the book. The heavy cover meets the pages with a soft, dull thud. I align the spine of the book with the edge of the desk. I screw the cap back onto the pen and place it in the brass holder. The workspace is clear. I take one last tour of the lantern room. I have a rag in my back pocket, a soft microfiber cloth. As I walk the perimeter, I run the cloth over the handrail one final time, removing my own fingerprints from the brass. I check the vent covers, ensuring they are angled correctly to allow airflow without letting in the damp sea spray. I pause at the glass, looking out. The ocean has turned a deep, bruised purple. The horizon is a thin line of indigo. Below, the white foam of the waves crashing against the rocks is becoming luminous in the gathering dusk. Above me, the great beam swings out over the water, a solid cone of light cutting through the coming night. It touches the waves, illuminating the whitecaps for a split second before sweeping on. I am satisfied. The tower is breathing on its own now. I gather my tool bag. It is a heavy canvas satchel with leather handles. I lift it, feeling the reassuring weight of the wrenches and drivers inside. I sling the strap over my shoulder. I take the empty thermos from the ledge where I left it hours ago. I step through the hatch that leads to the spiral staircase. I grasp the cold iron handle of the door and pull it shut behind me. The heavy latch engages with a solid clank, sealing the noise of the rotation motor inside the lantern room. Silence descends. I begin the journey down. 138 steps. My boots strike the metal treads with a steady, rhythmic cadence. Clang, clang, clang. The sound echoes softly in the cylindrical shaft of the tower. The air gets cooler as I descend. Up in the lantern room, the greenhouse effect and the heat of the lamp keep it warm. But here in the stone throat of the lighthouse, the temperature is dictated by the massive granite blocks that make up the walls. I trail my hand along the central column as I walk. The iron is painted a thick, glossy white. It feels smooth and cool under my palm. I count the landings as I pass them. The service level, where the spare bulbs are stored in padded crates. The oil room, which which now holds the backup generator, smelling faintly of diesel and grease. The storage level, where coils of rope and cans of paint are stacked in orderly pyramids. At the bottom, I reach the entrance hall. The floor here is black and white checkered tile, worn smooth by a century of keepers walking this same path. I set my tool bag down on the wooden bench near the door. I will organize it fully tomorrow morning, but for now, it is enough that it is off the floor and stowed. I take my heavy wool coat from the hook. I slide my arms into the sleeves, buttoning it all the way to the chin. Even though the walk to the cottage is short, the wind off the Atlantic cuts deep this time of evening. I put on my flat cap, pulling it down tight. I open the heavy outer door. The wind rushes in to meet me, carrying the salt spray and the roar of the ocean. It is a wild, chaotic sound compared to the ordered mechanical hum of the tower. I step out onto the concrete gallery, turning back to push the door closed. I lean my weight against it until the latch clicks, locking the tower securely. I turn and walk down the short concrete path toward the keeper's cottage. The gravel crunches satisfyingly under my boots. To my left, the cliff drops away into darkness. To my right, the scrub grass flattens under the wind. I look up. The beam sweeps over my head, a silent guardian. It cuts through the mist that is beginning to form. A solid bar of light rotating with perfect consistency. I count the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. Flash. The timing is exact. It brings a profound sense of peace to see it working from the outside. The machine I tended to all day is now performing its duty, watching over the coast while I rest. The cottage is a small, sturdy structure built of the same stone as the tower, with a slate roof that gleams wet in the spray. Warm yellow light spills from the kitchen window, a welcoming contrast to the stark white beam above. I reach the cottage door and stomp my boots on the mat, dislodging the gravel and salt. I turn the key in the lock, the mechanism tumbling smoothly, and step inside. The silence of the house is different from the silence of the tower. It is softer, warmer. The air smells of old wood and the remnants of the morning's coffee. I close the door, shutting out the wind. The roar of the ocean is instantly muted to a dull, comforting rumble. I unbutton my coat and hang it on the rack. I remove my cap. I sit on the small wooden chair in the hallway to unlace my boots. I pull the laces loose, easing the leather open. I slide my feet out, wiggling my toes in my thick wool socks. The relief is immediate. The heavy work boots are placed neatly side by side on the rubber tray. I slip into my house shoes, the fleece lining soft and warm. I move into the kitchen. It is a simple room, functional and tidy. I fill the kettle at the sink, the water rushing from the tap cold and clear. I place it on the stove and ignite the burner. The blue flame flares up, heating the metal. While the water boils, I wash my hands. I use a block of coarse soap, scrubbing away the smell of brass polish and machine oil. I lather my palms, working the soap into my knuckles, under my fingernails. I rinse with warm water, watching the suds swirl down the drain. I dry my hands on a rough cotton towel, feeling the friction bring the circulation back to my skin. The kettle whistles. I pour the water into a ceramic mug over a bag of chamomile tea. The steam rises, carrying the scent of flowers and honey. I add a splash of milk, watching it cloud and swirl through the amber liquid. I take the mug and move to the living room. I do not turn on the overhead light. The lamp on the side table provides enough illumination, casting a warm, golden pool of light over the armchair. I kneel before the wood stove. The fire I laid earlier has burned down to embers. I add a few pieces of dry birch. The wood catches quickly, the bark crackling as the flames lick upward. I adjust the damper to slow the burn, ensuring it will last through the night. I settle into the armchair. It is an old leather wingback, worn soft and supple. It accepts my weight with a creak of familiarity. I hold the warm mug in both hands, letting the heat seep into my palms. I take a sip. The tea is hot and soothing. I let my head rest against the back of the chair. My body feels heavy, a good, earned heaviness. My shoulders drop, releasing the tension of holding tools and climbing stairs. My legs relax, sinking deeper into the cushion. Outside the window, the rhythm continues. Every few seconds, the room brightens slightly as the great beam sweeps past. It is not intrusive. It is a lullaby of light. I watch the reflection on the far wall. It brightens, then fades. Brightens, then fades. I reflect on the day. The stripped screw that was replaced. The clarity of the polished glass. The smooth rotation of the gears. There are no loose ends. No tasks left half finished. The station is secure. The log is signed. The light is burning. I finish my tea, placing the empty mug on the coaster. I stay in the chair for a moment longer, listening to the crackle of the birch wood and the wind buffeting the thick stone walls. I feel completely insulated, a small point of warmth and order on the edge of the vast, dark sea. I stand up, stretching my arms overhead. My spine pops gently. I walk to the bedroom. The room is cool, just the way I like it for sleeping. I pull back the heavy quilt. The sheets are crisp, smelling of laundry soap and fresh air. I change into my night clothes, moving slowly, every motion deliberate and calm. I turn off the bedside lamp. The room plunges into darkness, save for the rhythmic sweep of the lighthouse beam filtering through the curtains. It paints a moving stripe of light across the ceiling, a slow, rotating hand of a clock that measures the night in flashes. I climb into bed. The mattress is firm, supporting my tired back. I pull the quilt up to my chin. The weight of the blankets is grounding. I can feel the warmth of my own body, creating a cocoon beneath the covers. I close my eyes. I can still hear the ocean, a low, white noise that fills the space in my mind. Whoosh, crash, silence. Whoosh, crash, silence. My breathing slows, aligning with the rhythm of the sea. I visualize the tower standing tall in the darkness outside. I see the lens spinning on its mercury bed, frictionless and silent. I see the beam cutting the fog. My toes relax. My calves relax. The tension melts from my thighs and hips. My hands uncurl, resting loosely on the sheets. My jaw slackens. The day is done. The work is good. The light is keeping watch. I drift. The boundary between the waking world and sleep blurs. The sound of the wind becomes a hum. The flash of the light becomes a pulse behind my eyelids. Safe, warm, steady, I sink into the deep, restorative quiet of the night. Sleep takes me, as smooth and inevitable as the turning of the tide.